Thank you so much, Naledi. She definitely is in the hot seat today, and obviously for the rest of the week. It has been a brutal, absolutely brutal cross-examination. I mean, we've seen over the past few days that the former MEC of Gauteng Health, Qedani Mahlangu, at points getting visibly irritated and agitated when asked to repeat certain parts of information, critical bits of information. So we know that the current advocates and lawyers that are doing the cross-examination now, the bulk of them will be from lawyers representing either the families of the 144 mental health patients who've passed on or died, or either the NGOs themselves that were fingered as being unequipped or ill-prepared, not having enough facilities, not having enough money, or not having enough equipment or staff to be able to take care of the specialized needs of those patients who are mental health patients. So, you know, one of the most important things that came out of yesterday's cross-examination by the lawyer of one of the NGOs, Mr. Pilelani, was that he was trying to pin her down to get an idea of the time frame. So to set the scene for you, Naledi, now the former MEC has said that she was not initially told by her HODs or either by any of the other senior ranking staff members that reported to her around this Esidimeni issue. And she says she was initially not told in about early November 2016, early July, early September 2016, about the 34 deaths of those former Life Esidimeni patients that were taken to different facilities. She says it was only when her then media communication spokesperson, Steve Mabona, then contacted her and said he was receiving quite a number of media queries, specifically about one NGO that was having a problem in the kitchen with one premises being shared by two different NGOs, and those NGOs fighting over the shared space of that kitchen. And now Mahlangu says that she went to that NGO to do a site inspection and tried to resolve the issues of the kitchen sharing, of the lack of beds, of the lack of space and the lack of capacity and enough staffing. And you know what Advocate Pilela was saying to her is it makes absolutely no sense to his rationale, to his thinking, that she would go to one of these NGOs that were fingered in the deaths of the former Life Esidimeni patients, as well as not being properly prepared. Why she would go there just to check up on the issue of kitchens. And she insists that at that point there was no communication, nor was there any discussions had about the possibility of the former Life Esidimeni patients having died. And she says it was only in September where she found out, just before she went to the Gauteng legislature to give feedback to the then Premier of Gauteng, Mr. David Makura, where she found out that 36 former Life Esidimeni patients had died. And obviously it was at that point, that really was the watershed moment, Naledi, where we found that the Minister of Health at the time, Mr. Aaron Motsoaledi, stepped in, called in the health ombudsman to come and investigate. Initially what they thought at the time was only 36 deaths, only to discover a year later with the findings of the health ombudsman that the number had risen, and it had been, at least at that point, which was around February 2017, at least 93 former Life Esidimeni patients had died as a result of this unplanned, improper and seemingly illogical move to remove essentially helpless former Life Esidimeni mental health care patients, Naledi. So what we are expecting for the rest of the day today, leading into us heading towards the end of this week, is the continuation of the former Gauteng Health MEC. And this is such an important week. It is absolutely critical at this stage, Naledi. We know that this inquest, it really is a do or die for all of the parties that have been implicated, because this trial itself will determine who will be held criminally liable and who will be ultimately held charged criminally and face an actual criminal charge in the next year or two, once the findings or the verdict of this inquest has finally been tabled. I mean, we're still quite a while yet to getting to that point, Naledi, but it is at this moment, at this juncture, in the lulls in between, or audience participation in terms of people listening and watching and following this case closely. It has been a very long and protracted case, but it is at this point where critical key makers in the timeline of what led up to the deaths of those 144 Life Esidimeni mental health patients, it is at this juncture where they are being cross-examined, where critical information is coming out, where we'll find out what exactly will happen with the ruling and who ultimately will be held criminally liable for the deaths of these Life Esidimeni mental health patients.